Hey everyone, I am Yvette Loy, host of LifeHerd Podcast. You can subscribe my YouTube channel and you can listen to LifeHerd Podcast on all major platforms. Tonight we have an amazing guest with us. He's an energy medicine practitioner and he's also a self-care and healing coach. This is going to be amazing because a lot of us don't know too much about emotional healing, and you are going to be enlightened on a lot of this conversation that we're getting ready to have, because a lot of us need this right now. A lot of us are all over the place, and some of us don't even know the difference between emotions and us going off our mind and different things like that. So, just knowing how to separate everything is just, this whole conversation is about to be amazing with it. So, we have Jay Chanthalangsy here tonight. So, hey, Jay, how are you?
Hi, Yvette. I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here and to share my knowledge with the audience. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Cool beans. Jay, I got one question before we actually get started. How did you find me?
So it's through actually a friend turned a client turned friend. I think she was on your podcast
Okay.
before, and I had her as a client, and she was like, "Are you on any podcasts?" I'm like, "Not really, I mean, I had my own like years before, but I kind of stopped doing it." And she was like, "You need to get your stuff out there and like get on these podcasts." And I was like, "I listen to a lot," And so she was like, "Let me get you, introduced to some of the ones that I do." And I was like, "Okay." So here we are. So
That
it was
is
like,
super dope.
yeah.
Well, they're right. You do, because of the amazing content that you have. Like, it's super dope. Even though some stuff I noticed they have you shadow banned,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
but hopefully the algorithms start loving you again, because you have some amazing stuff that you put out to really help people, and I really appreciate you for even taking time out your day to even create such amazing content.
wow, thank you. I appreciate that. I receive all of those kind words. That's You don't hear that a lot, like how someone appreciates you taking the time to create the content. And I think a lot of content creators out there would definitely appreciate that too, because it does take a lot of time and intention and
Yes.
you know energy to do that. So
Yes.
appreciate
Yes.
that.
Energy it is. So, could
Mhm.
you, in your own words, introduce everyone to who you are, what do you do, and how you actually got into this? Have you always been this person?
Oh yeah, wow. Great question, and be happy to answer it. So, my name is Jay Chanthalangsy. I'm a self-care healing coach, energy medicine practitioner, and a meditation teacher. So, I teach students and clients. I work with them to help them begin their healing journey through self-care. I truly believe that self-care is healthcare, and healing is the hustle. We all need something that we need to heal from. And most of these things that we need to heal from are invisible emotional wounds, things that happened to us in the past or traumatic events. And most of us don't really know how to, work through that, because some of our behaviors that are displaying currently in our lives are most likely from unresolved emotional trauma. And so
Mm,
I help my clients understand that. I help them create that self awareness to begin the journey. It's a very arduous, tumultuous, very lonely, but also rewarding and enlightening journey, and beautiful when you get deeper into the realizations that you have about your life, your past, your present, and then looking forward to the future to create the life that you really want. As far as the energy uh, healing and practitioner goes, that was pretty recent. And I like to say, when I started to do that and practice that on myself, that was actually a almost like a shortcut to help me on my own personal journey. And the catalyst behind that was when my wife, when we had our second child, our son Ezra, she fell into deep depression, postpartum
Mm.
depression, anxiety. She had all the
Mm.
symptoms. It was pretty a very difficult time for our family, because I never experienced anything like that with someone that I really love and cherish and close to. She was
Right.
at the point where she just didn't even want to hold our baby, and just
Oh.
bed and all that stuff. And I learned a lot through that ordeal, especially with the women's mental health and postpartum care, the lack of it in the United States, which is very frustrating.
Mm.
Lack of sources on that end as well. But then also, like I said, it was a catalyst to understand holistic ways to help her deal with that. And when we found energy healing, it basically, you know, um, helped her work through her diagnosis of postpartum depression. And it was so incredibly life changing that we decided to become practitioners, both my wife and I, in a
Wow.
specific type of energy healing modality called the emotion code and body code, that was developed by Dr. Bradley Nelson. And so once we did that, we created our own practice, and now we help many people understand how their emotions impact their overall health and well-being. And so
Wow.
yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I'm a family of have a father of four, living out here abroad in the Philippines, just helping my clients and teaching students the way to healing. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yes. Well, speaking of like the postpartum, a lot of women do go through that, and I understand what you were saying, like the lack of help that women receive, and for you to be a man and you to actually help your wife in that. A lot of women aren't blessed to have something like that. So
Yeah.
I applaud you for even noticing it and being patient with her and loving on her and understanding what she's actually going through. Because it's some women that go through that and they have selfish partners that really don't understand it, or they're not even trying to. And I'm a daycare owner. I've owned a daycare for about 17 years. So it's a pattern, an ongoing pattern that I've seen over the years of owning a daycare center. And a lot of couples don't last. And shoot, some of them don't even last when a child is past 1 years old.
Right.
So, and some of it comes from the postpartum depression that women do go through, and no one can't handle it. So, thank you for loving on your wife.
I received that too, and I just want to echo what you just said about it being difficult for the partner, the man in the relationship or the partner, to recognize these symptoms. I mean, her symptoms were so severe, and like I said, I
Mhm.
never had any experience dealing with her like that, so it scared me. Like it
I
freaked me out.
bet.
I couldn't I felt helpless. I felt hopeless. I didn't know what to do. Anything that I did or said to her or tried with her, like she just, mental health is really, debilitating to the point where she didn't want to get out of bed, and just to get her to the hospital to see a doctor was like a whole ordeal in itself, because she would just wake up crying, or just very emotional, and she was already an emotional person already. She's very empathic, and so
Mhm.
it was hard for me to kind of use my discernment to understand, okay, well, when is it going to be when is it the time to take her to see a professional, right? And
Yeah.
so when that happened, like I said, I also learned a lot about postpartum care. And I just like to add to what you said, that most women who give birth, and they can experience postpartum depression even 9 months after birth. So there's a
Yeah.
long period that this postpartum depression can go undiagnosed. And, us men who might not be aware, for our partners be like, well, she's just being emotional or
Dramatic and
dramatic,
everything.
use whatever, describing words there is. And, we just won't even think about that. But when you truly understand what women have to go through after giving birth, like psychologically, physically, mentally, emotionally, like it's us men can never even
Mm,
understand or fathom that.
yes.
So for me, like I said, for me, it was like a real eye-opening experience. And, like I became a lot more grateful, having so much gratitude for her and, what she had to go through, for her overall health and well-being just to give birth to our children. So it's very important that we recognize that, especially for women.
Yes. So would you helping individuals when it comes to emotional healing, what is one of the common things that you notice a lot within a lot of your clients?
Ooh, good question. I love good questions. You ask really good questions. Uh,
Thank you.
so the thing that I notice the most is physically, they are feeling very fatigued, drained, very burnt out. They don't have a lot of energy. Uh, Emotionally, they're stuck, they're stagnant. They don't have a positive outlook on their life, right? And they're always feeling, sad or grieving, or they can't really get themselves back on track to do whatever they need to do. And then, like mentally, a lot of negative thoughts, right? I can't do this, low self worth, um, low self confidence, and they're always ruminating on specific things that happened in the past. Because even in our initial conversations, when I work with my clients, they would talk about the same thing. And that's a very unconscious behavior, because when
Mm,
we're hurting and we're in pain, what the body wants to do is just release and let go. And it's going to come out verbally to a point where even, when you're working with a coach, or even when you're talking to your friend, like you just might need to talk and vent and vent and vent. But then when the other person is trying to help you and give you advice, like nothing's even registering. I mean, that's all the pent up energy that's, you know, your body's
mm.
holding, and how many emotions that are trapped inside your body that's trying to release itself. So I see that a lot in a lot of my clients. And basically what they're in is they're in survivor mode, right?
Yeah.
Their nervous system is so dysregulated, they're so fearful, they're so insecure, but that's just because they were never taught, the correct ways or the more healthy ways to deal with emotions or traumatic events.
So when someone is approaching you and you expose to them like you're dealing with emotional healing, do they still find themselves in denial of it and try to shift it into something else?
um I wouldn't say it's denial. Sometimes they would, but most times, you know, most of my clients, they're more surprised. They're like,
Mm,
oh, it's an instant realization when I say, well, because the way I ask the questions when they come to me and they start explaining and going into the whole life story about some of the things that happened to them in the past and how it they think that it impacted them, right? So when I ask more clarifying questions about specific events, I would say, how did that event make you feel? How did
mm,
how did you respond to that? How did your how was your relationship with your parents, your caregivers, your siblings? We start making these connections into how those relationships, or those events, whether it be intentional or unintentional,
mm,
might have caused some of these negative behaviors or belief systems that they have about themselves, about their worth, or about the world, even how they make their decisions. So I go through a series of questions to help them kind of spark that curiosity as
Mm,
to what could have caused some of these things that they're dealing with in their life currently, right? Why they're so tired, why they're so angry, why they can't get into a relationship, why they can't seem to like move or progress forward in their lives or in their careers. Like all of these are interconnected somehow to something that happened in the past. And then when they, like I said, when they realize that, the spark of curiosity creates more awareness, right? So once you
yeah.
get that curiosity and then you start to ask questions like how you're asking great questions right now, like when they start to ask those questions for themselves after someone like me or coach or therapist or whoever, starts to, kind of get that engine going, then they start to really, you know,
Mm,
reflect and deeply think about like, yeah, you're right. Like because of that
yeah.
thing that happened with my father or my mother or my brother or my sister, or even when I was in school, I got bullied. Like that's probably why I feel XYZ. And that's probably why I have trouble talking to people, or that's probably why, I think that I can never be great, or, something like that, right? It's always
Yeah.
connected to something that happened prior.
It is. Now that I really think about it, that is true. So when it comes to emotional healing, a lot of people don't understand that it is a difference in it in different ways. And that's like sometimes our mind, and then we have our heart, and then we have our emotions.
Mhm.
So how do you help your clients understand the difference between the three? Because sometimes they really think it's their heart or their mind when it's really they're going off their emotions and they don't have any control of it.
Yeah. So I want to give you a little bit of context before I answer this question to give
Okay.
you some of my personal experience, how I learned what emotions were. So,
Okay.
if you've been following my journey or know my story, I was very emotionally unavailable. I was very, what my wife would call emotionally disabled, right? I didn't know how to feel, emote, verbalize, articulate, talk just normally about how I would feel. And that was from many, many years of, childhood trauma of
Mm,
how, my father was very strict, abusive, verbally, mentally, physically, right? Because every time I would feel something, I would get reprimanded, I would get disciplined. Like there was no room for showing any type of emotion in an Asian household father that's very strict, right? Like even if I
yeah.
cried, I would get beat up. You know what I mean? It's like you're 2 weeks. So my whole mentality growing up as a kid was I couldn't show any emotions. Right? Emotions was equal to weakness. Vulnerability was weakness. So what did that do? That translated into me having relationships and me having behaviors like emotional abuse, giving women the silent treatment, just walking out. When conversations get hard, I just leave. And I had this attitude of like, love it or leave it. That's the way I am. I'm never going to change. Right. And
Mm,
so failed relationship after failed relationship, it became a pattern. And when
oh,
we're in the thick of it, we're not aware of this pattern, right? We just start to live our life aimlessly, unconsciously, and we then start to accept things about ourselves that becomes our identity up until something happens. Like for me, it was meeting my wife, right? So that's crazy. That's this. I think that's the Zoom thing or whatever. Oh, my phone. Sorry. Um, Me and my wife was like, I was this emotionally unavailable person, and she was this, very nurturing, empathetic, like open with her emotion. She could feel easily and speak about it, and we came together, right? And so, universe works in mysterious ways, and that happened to be a huge catalyst of how I learned how to be more vulnerable, how to be more sensitive, how to be more um, in depth with how I feel, right? Because I was very cerebral, very logical, just like a lot of men are, right? We always try to solve things and, just do everything from a very logical standpoint. And so when we would have deeper conversations about emotions, I couldn't say anything. I was like a 1-2 word answer type of guy. Like, how you feeling today, Jay? I'm good. Like there's nothing beyond that. Like even though I'd be feeling frustrated or like, maybe like worried about something, no, I'm good. And my wife at the time we were dating, she would like hate that, She was like,
Oh my
anything else,
God.
like, let me know, But I didn't know how to articulate. I didn't know how to articulate anything that I was feeling. So when I began my healing journey, I started to learn about that. I read so many books, listened to so many podcasts, started to increase my emotional intelligence by just sitting with myself and understanding the sensations of how different emotions felt like, how worried feel like, how sadness felt like, how happiness and joy or, anxiety felt like, right? Like I didn't think I even had anxiety, but then I didn't know how it reacted in my body because every time an
Man.
emotion would rise, I would just suppress it, right? And that in itself is very detrimental to your overall health and well-being, which causes
Mhm.
more issues later, right? And so for me, understanding emotions was just really doing a lot of introspective work, doing a lot of shadow work, a lot of silence work, just me being in my body, meditation, being mindful of the things that happen. I had to really reconnect with my body. And I think a lot of
Wow.
us need that. And that's how you can tell um, that you need work in this area, because if you're always trying to logically or intellectualize what's happening when you're feeling an emotion, that means you're not connecting with what's really going on in your body when your emotions arise. Emotions is just your body feedback, right? Like it's telling you like, hey, you're experiencing in a situation right now, you're feeling something. What are you going to do
Mhm.
about it, right? And then what we
Right.
tend to do is just overthink things. Well, I'm just going to do this, or I'm going to disassociate. I'm just going to escape. I'm just going to talk my way through it. I'm not going to feel it. I'm not going to really just sit with whatever's coming up because it's very uncomfortable, right?
Right.
If you're a person like me who never felt anything, like it's very uncomfortable to the point where you don't want to feel anything. That's why, there's a lot of epidemics of like, addiction and stuff like that. And, people who
Yeah.
just want to feel numb and don't want to feel anything because the hurt and the pain from that emotion is so great. Right. And so, you know, sorry, it's a long-winded
No, you're
answer
good. You're
here.
good.
Yeah. But, to know the difference between, your thoughts, your heart space, right? That's where your intuition comes from. And then these emotions, you have to look at emotions as its own uh, energy. It's a specific type of energy frequency. And this is what I've learned, practicing energy medicine, right? Emotions, every emotion you feel has its own frequency. And emotions just means energy in motion. And there's a lot of studies and research backing this, because when you feel a certain way or when you feel a certain emotion, you act differently, you breathe differently,
You
the
do.
energy moves through your body differently, right? The sensations that happen in your body is also different. When you're feeling happy, you don't feel knots in your stomach. You feel light, you feel, you know, um, butterflies maybe, or like a little bit of, you know, even like a little sweat or heat, emitting from your body. When you feel
Mhm.
anxious, like your stomach knots up, right? You feel very, like sick to your core, your abdomen. Like
Yeah.
these are all body sensations that are reacting when you feel a specific emotion. And so
Yes.
that's how you can tell the difference. You have to do a lot of this work and understand, um, how it impacts your body. You need to connect to your body, because we already are. Most of us are already very logical and intellectual,
Right.
and we always overthink things anyways because we're constantly stressing, worrying, and
Yeah.
thinking about the future or the past. But when it comes to emotions, it can be very difficult to process. And because
Mm,
we don't know how to do it, the easiest thing to do is just to disassociate or escape. And that just adds more problems later on.
yeah, it sure do. It has a lot more problems.
Yeah.
So tell me, once a lot of times when we're in this state of mind, you personally, you just basically say your own testimony and why you didn't involve yourself with emotions and stuff due to your childhood and upbringing. Could you elaborate more and let us know, like, how did you heal yourself from that? Because you have to love on yourself and heal yourself before you're able to help someone else.
Correct. 1000% correct. And I love how you said you have to love on yourself to begin to, heal yourself and heal others. And that was one of the huge things that I didn't realize I needed to do. I was very stubborn. I was very, hard headed. Like I said, I had that attitude of like love it or leave it, right? I mean, it is what it is
Mhm.
when you're with me. But when I met my wife, um, there was something about her that I couldn't get past. And the thing that I couldn't get past was I couldn't see myself without her. No matter how
Mhm.
angry I got, no matter how, stupid the stupid things that I said, and our fights were, we had fights that were lasting like a week, and we just kept fighting about the same thing over and over and over. Our first 5 years of our relationship was very tumultuous, very,
Wow.
just, head butting each other. But then for some reason, I was like, how come I can't leave this woman? In my past relationships, I
Right. Be
mean, once I got
gone.
angry, I was out. I was like, all right, so, okay, cool. I even had my first daughter was with the previous relationship, and I still left that relationship. I was like, this, I can't handle this anymore. I'm out. But for some reason, when I met my wife, it was like I couldn't see myself without her, and she was the only person that I could see myself. I can envision myself and see this vision of us being old. That's never happened to me before, right? And so something clicked in my head. I was like, there's something here. And that was the first kind of sign that I understood that something was going to happen to me. And then after many years of just, fighting and arguing and just being exhausted, and like this relationship was like weighing on me, and I was getting depleted, like emotionally, physically. Like I could not sleep for the
Mhm.
life of me. I was suffering from insomnia, worrying. I felt like I was always walking on eggshells around her. Because like right when I come home from work, like just one look or one comment would like start a fight. Either
Yeah,
she would get triggered, I would get triggered, and then boom, like
man.
4 nights, of not talking to each other. And then I also had that attitude and behavior of like, well, I'm just gonna sweep everything under the rug. We're not even gonna talk about it. I'm gonna make it seem like this never happened. And for my wife, it was like, that's not how we work through conflict. You just don't forget what just happened,
Yeah, keep
the
moving
argument that
forward.
we had. Yeah. And so I really had to go through that process. And then one day I was just so tired and so
Ooh.
exhausted. I woke up and it said, I cannot live like this anymore. Something needs to change. So I literally went to the mirror in my bathroom, and I was like, what, tell me what is it that I have to do? And I just stared at myself, and I was like, maybe it's you. Right? Just like, light bulb. I was like,
Like,
maybe it's not her, and maybe it's you. Like, what? Like, why are you
wow.
so angry?
Accountability.
Yeah, why are you so defensive all the time? Because these are words that she would say to me, but it never registered because I was so defensive. I was so, the identity that I had for myself was, this is the way I am. I'm not going to change. Like I had that
Yeah,
belief system because it was how I was for such a long time. And so when I
right.
when I sat there for like 25 minutes in the bathroom looking at myself, I started, having that spark of curiosity. Like, why am I always mad? Why do we always fight about the same things? Like, why can't I tell her how I feel? Like, why do I get triggered when she'll ask me a question like, hey, how come you didn't, take out the trash, and then that would like, start all these like triggering moments of, well, of my own self-worth, and then, yeah, all these other things that came up from the past, which I didn't know was connected at the time, right?
Oh.
And so I didn't have these connections. And so when I started to ask myself these questions, that's when, that awareness started to grow. That curiosity started to get bigger and bigger, and the questions started to get deeper and deeper. And as I was asking myself these questions, then I started to look for answers, right? And where did I look
Mm.
for answers? I didn't look for answers with my wife. I looked for answers in books, podcasts, motivational videos on YouTube. Like all these things. I went on like a learning spree. Like,
Oh, wait.
what are emotions? Like, how do you develop emotional intelligence? How do you talk about hard conversations? Like, what's childhood trauma? Like, how does childhood trauma affect, your current behaviors and all these things? I started learning all these, vernaculars and psychology and all this stuff, and then things started to make sense, right?
Mm.
And then I would share those things with my wife, and slowly, and when I say slowly, Yvette, I mean it was a slow process of me deconstructing my old self, my old version, like implementing things that I learned, and then like, practicing that with my wife. I mean, we went through therapy, couples counseling, individual anger management. Like, I went through the gambit of, self-improvement and help and therapy, because I wanted to, like, I felt the need,
Yeah.
I had to, because I couldn't live the life that I was anymore. And I knew that I didn't want to leave my wife, so I had to make it work, and then slowly but surely I started to realize, like, shit, it's me. The whole time, like, it was all me. Like, I was such an angry, resentful, defensive, always triggered man. But why? And then I started to make the connections. Well, this came from my childhood. This came from like how my dad treated me. This came from like my low self-worth of, all the things that I had to go through when I was younger, and which led me to many other things. Like in my 20s, it was a huge part of my rebellion phase, where once I got out of the house and I turned 18, I was like, some might consider that living, because like it was like living. I was living to the point where, like I was like almost about to cross that line, because I was into substances and alcohol, and I was a party.
Man.
I was doing crazy stuff, but it was like a response to all of that pressure when I was a child.
Yeah.
That freedom, you're like, F this, I'm just gonna say
Yeah.
everything to the sun and just try to feel something. In that moment, in that season of my life, I thought I was trying to feel something, but in actuality, I was actually numbing the things that
Yeah.
I didn't want to feel, right? So, like I said, when I made those connections, Yvette, it was like, like
I
all of these things
bet.
started unfolding, and all these things started happening, and I started to really understand the detriment of all those past unresolved traumas that was now having on my relationship, on my marriage, even on my parenting. Like, I was another
Ooh.
huge catalyst was like when I was, repeating the same type of behaviors that my father was did to me, to my own children,
Oh,
right?
man.
I started, I was very emotionally, physically abusive when I would get angry, but deep down inside of it, I knew that that wasn't the right thing to do, like,
Right, right.
because I experienced that when I was a child, and so that was like another huge catalyst for me to like really encourage me and inspire me to like be better, first as my wife and then my children. And then I knew, like, I'm not supposed to be this type of man, because then when I started to make that realization, I started to see, like, damn, I'm becoming my dad. Like,
Man.
I don't want to be like that, right? And so that's how those two major events or major catalysts in my life, sparked my healing journey. And from then on, it's been a continuous journey. This is a marathon. So every
Man, I
single
know.
I'm trying to get better, like still learning, still, implementing things, new strategies, new ways of how to regulate my emotions, be more aware, practice mindfulness, because, life is always happening and you're always put in these situations where it's going to give you the assignment, not the test,
Yeah,
the assignment, so that you could use whatever you learn to better the situation. And, we're always experiencing life. So, you're always supposed to be ready. But the more you do this work, the more you make healing a hustle, because old things are always going to come up. Like, this is how you begin the journey and continue with the journey. And I always say, I
definitely.
teach my clients and students, it's like, you start the healing journey, but it ends up being a healing adventure, right?
That's
Because
true.
when in the adventure stage, you now have all the tools that you're equipped with. And when the triggers do come up, and when these things, these situations do present itself, you become more curious than more triggered, because
That's
now your
true.
curiosity is like, okay, this is stressing me out. I'm not going to react. I feel the stress. I honor the emotions, but how am I gonna navigate through this so that
That's
I don't
true.
continue to be stressed? I don't continue to project my anger or whatever, right? So yeah, I hope
That
I
is
answered your
true.
question.
No, you did. You did. So I find it very super dope because it's people gotta understand like the process of you healing yourself.
Yeah,
And some people will skip themselves in their home and then actually coming to help people. So sometimes
right,
they just was like, okay, I have an idea and I know I have issues, but I don't want to address my own issues. So I'm just going to help other people face their issues and deal with their issues. And that's it. So the
right,
dope thing about you is that you address your issues on your personal self in your home, your kids, your wife, like you implemented and did the steps to it. So not only you can help yourself, you can help men and women when they're dealing with things within their marriage or just relationship overall. And then you can also help individuals when it comes to them not understanding their anger and emotions towards their children.
yeah.
So that's nothing but like a blessing. And I'm like so proud of you to even take those steps to even get where you at right now.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Every time I hear those words, proud of you, because like our inner child is like, I wish my dad said that to me. Like
Man,
there's
yeah.
much to my life, like it makes me feel emotional. So I want to, I want to kind of feel this emotion that you're saying it to me and honor that, because a lot of, specifically men, like it's hard
Yeah.
to deal with those words when they come off, and like we're not able to fully process and honor,
Hmm.
those emotions. So like I said, when I hear that, it hits a very soft place in my heart, and it makes me feel,
That
very
cool
good. So
emotion.
thank you. Yeah. And so it's definitely, I receive it wholeheartedly, and thank you very much. But I also want to, talk about one other thing, because you mentioned about like anger, and
Hmm.
anger was a very prominent projection of an emotion for me. And I
Hmm.
didn't know that anger was actually a mask for my projection of, for grief and for sadness. Inside, I was
Wow.
actually sad. I was very sad that I had to deal with a father, of the way he was, and I wasn't able to protect myself. My older sister wasn't able to protect me, even my mom, because she was very submissive, and I was kept telling myself, like, why do I deserve this, right? Which
Hmm.
impacted a lot of my self-confidence, self-worth issues. And so all that sadness that was going unprocessed over time, to protect myself, every time I would feel sadness, it would come off and explode out of me as anger, to protect
Man.
the emotion, the real underlying emotion of sadness, of grief, right? And that's what mostly a lot of anger is. is unprocessed sadness, right?
Yeah.
Because anger can also be very productive and positive when you're using it in the right way, for like injustice or,
Yeah.
motivation. But if it comes from like deep sadness, you're gonna your body in its own defense mechanisms is going to protect you so that you don't feel that sadness again. So it's gonna come out as anger. So that's what happened to me a lot. I would blow up all the time. And my ways of
Wow.
blowing up was either yelling at people, punching things, I broke windows and stuff like that. I was that type of guy. I was that dude,
Man.
or like just walking away, which was
Oh
all
Lord.
forms of emotional abuse, right? And so, like
Yeah.
in that lack of awareness, I never took accountability. I never thought it was my fault, and until I really started to do the work, I started to really understand, like, man, I was a jerk.
Man.
Like, and my wife would tell my wife all the time, I was like, man, that one time you almost left me. Now that I look back at it, I wouldn't even be mad at you. I wouldn't even, I would confidently sit here and be like, you deserve better. You didn't deserve
Wow.
me being like that. You go find yourself someone who will treat you way better than what I treated you. But luckily, thank God, like she was like had enough
Seriously.
patience and love, and we had that foundation together that she didn't, because I would have been devastated.
Yes. So tell me, when how can I put this? So, people are still in the same position mentally and emotionally,
Mhm.
and sometimes people get uncomfortable with people that are healed. So, how do you feel now that you are healed and you helping other people heal, but they not understanding the
Yeah.
freedom of healedness?
Oh wow, that's $1 million question. I love it. So when you work with unhealed people, um, and when I work with my clients or my students, my level of awareness and my own self-compassion, self-empathy, right? All the things that I had to go through, it reflects with our relationship as client or coach, or like, mentor or mentee. And it comes with a lot of patience. You
Mm,
already see the signs. If you're on your healing journey, or you're a healed person in specific aspects of your life, when you work with someone who is unhealed, you can already see the signs. It's already
yep.
going to give you a baseline of compassion and patience with the person, right? We, as a coach, I can't do the work for you. I can help guide you. I can help ask the right questions to make your own realizations. And it's my job to provide that safe space for you to make that realization and for you to be vulnerable. When it comes down to it, a lot of people just want to be heard, just want to be acknowledged, just want to feel safe, man or woman, right? To feel
Right.
safe, not to be judged, not to be criticized, whatever they're going through, whatever it might feel like, is making them uh, project or act in a certain way, like they're afraid of criticism from others, or they have secrets that would make them feel like very small, so they don't want to share, right? As a coach, like, we help provide that space, and like I said, we ask the questions to help them slowly unravel themselves uh, in a very vulnerable space. And once they can feel that and answer some of those questions, then they start to get more comfortable. And when they start to get more comfortable, they become more open. They become more
Mm,
um, uh, receptive to the things that you know the coach or the mentor would say, right? Because we've all been through it. I know you've been through it. Everyone's been through it.
yeah.
When we're narrow minded, and we're not aware, someone, you could be in an abusive relationship, and you have all these people telling you, you got to get out of the relationship, but because you're so accustomed to that type of relationship or of abuse or whatever, because you've experienced it from before. That's your baseline of safety.
Mm.
All those words are going to come in, and then out
Yeah.
out the other ear, and then you're still in the same situation. There always has to be a catalyst of why things happen, and most times the catalyst comes from something major, right? Something dramatic, something tragic, or like me, you were just exhausted. You're sick and tired of being sick and tired. You're like, man,
Yeah.
something needs to change. Unfortunately, it's always like that. And I always tell my students and clients, we begin to heal for two reasons, right? Either you're aware enough that you want to, or you've been
Mhm.
suffering enough that you need to. And
Yeah.
most times it's always the latter, right? I was
Mhm.
suffering so much, I was so exhausted. I needed to like change, or else, my life would have crumbled in front of my eyes. My wife would have left me, kids and all that stuff, and I wouldn't be in the position where I am now. So, we always go through that. And so as a coach, like I said, like when we can provide that safe space, that's when we, are able to help the person. And it comes, like I said, with a lot of patience, a lot of compassion, a lot of explaining, right?
Yeah.
And being aware in that sense, like I not only do I give my clients like time, I also observe their behaviors. I observe the things that they talk about or don't talk about, right?
Mm.
Based on the questions that I ask them, and then I use my own knowledge and judgment in that specific session to help uh, formulate some of my questions to further help them open up, right? Because
Right.
you're unhealed, like you're very guarded, right? You don't want
Yeah.
to talk about specific things. Some things might come up that might be traumatic, but like, not not the repressed or super suppressed things that your subconscious forgot. I mean, those are is going to always come up later, but it's a very slow process to help people, become more open when you're working with unhealed, or people who are, I don't really like to say unhealed. I like to say like
Right.
people who are ready to heal. You know what I mean? Like all of
Yeah.
us have things we need to heal from, but when are we going to be ready to do the
That's
work,
true.
right? And so, yeah, I take them through that process. I have my own, process of the healing stages of the healing journey, and once we go through, all those, stages, and I educate them about that, like I said, things start to connect, things start to get sparked within them with their curiosity, and then they're more open to talk about things. So
Wow, that is amazing. So
yeah.
if anyone wanted to utilize your services on helping them become emotional healed, what do they have to do?
Yeah, so I have my website. You can just go to jchanthalangsy.com. The best place to start if you wanted to do it for yourself. I have two resources that you can take for free. The first one is the 5 stages of the healing journey. This is modeled after my own personal healing journey, and you can take the assessment, answer a few questions, and then it can tell you exactly what stage you're on. So quickly, the five stages are awareness, right? It always starts with awareness. Acceptance, when you start to accept yourself with all your flaws and all the things that that's cool. Action is when you put in the work. You start to hire a coach, go therapy, do self-care routines and all that stuff. Actualizations, when you begin to reap what you sow in the previous stage of action, right? You start to feel differently, you start to look at life differently, you start to have synchronicities, you start to understand like, wow, my behaviors are because of XYZ, past trauma or event. And then the fifth is authenticity. Healing is just about remembering who you truly are underneath all of the trauma and suffering that we've been through, right? You were always there. It's just you've been conditioned by all this pain and suffering or outside external things that it kind of led you off, your true compass, your true essence. So when you come to that final stage of authenticity, you become very unapologetic. You start to set boundaries, healthy boundaries. You start to do things that feed your soul. You start to like connect to the right people, right? The right energies. You start to do
Yes.
things that make you feel excited and, joyful about life. So, you know, I hope that's the kind of like the process of how I help my clients do it. But you can take an assessment on my website. Like I said, you just answer a few questions. I'll send you a full report based on the answers to your questions of where you are. And that report will also have actionable steps that can help you, navigate through whatever stage you're on and on to the next stage. And then the second
Wow.
resource is a self-care plan, right? I truly believe that self-care is a direct path to healing. And so we have to turn that attention to ourselves. We start to have to ask ourselves a question. We have to really take care of ourselves. We have to prioritize ourselves, our health, our well-being, our thoughts, our emotions. We have to connect deeper with our bodies, right? And so if you don't have a self-care plan, I also have a simple and effective self-care plan creator. It's based on 3 pillars to implement effective self-care, which is mindfulness, movement, and motivation. A lot of people
Mm.
have this understanding like I should be spending like an hour on myself every day to get to a point of my,
Yeah.
bettering myself. But when you're in survivor mode and you're like nervous system is dysregulated and you have a lot of things you have to work through, the first thing to do is do things that are very simple, attainable. But the thing that matters is it has to be consistent. So consistency matters more than duration. So my self-care plan, your minimum minutes you spend on yourself can be 3 minutes, right? So 3 minutes a day you have to commit to yourself. Like, okay, I'm gonna breathe every day for 1 minute, like deep breathing
Yeah.
to bring you back to center. I'm going to, do jumping jacks for 1 minute, get my body moving, get the lymphatic system activated, get my heart rate up. And then motivation. I'm gonna journal, write through things that I'm grateful for. I'm gonna say affirmations or something like that, right? So, but you do that after 30 days, you're gonna see the difference. You're gonna feel
Yeah.
different. You're gonna start to like, even question yourself even more. Like, man, if I could do this for 30 days, what else can I do? Like that's
Man.
how you start to cultivate more, self-trust, self-empathy, self-love, right? It starts with self-care. We've
Hmm.
forgotten how to do that. So those are the
Yes.
two resources that can definitely, help you begin the journey, and you can find that on my website. So
That
hope
is
that helps.
so cool. That is amazing. It's so crazy. You and two other people I'm interviewing today, you guys are my last interview for season 3.
Ooh.
And it's super dope because we're all talking about basically healing and just our journeys and everything. But one thing that I would like to tell you is this conversation is great because it's like God put me in the right path. The universe actually like shifting in my direction because before my season 4, I'm actually going on a healing journey.
Ooh, wow.
Yes.
Congrats. Congrats.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
I am going to be off social media,
Wow.
everything. I'm just focusing on myself, healing, exercising, prayer, all of that. I'm doing it all. Journaling, I'm doing it
Yes.
all.
Oh my gosh. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. And the thing a lot of people don't also talk about is, the after effects, the byproducts of healing.
Yes.
I always say, they always say like hurt people, heal people,
Yep.
right? And it's a natural byproduct that when you start to heal, you start to want to help others. But most
Yeah.
people don't know that when you just heal, when your energy changes, you already start this ripple effect of healing organically, right? Your
Yes.
relationships change, the way you look at life changes, your decisions start to change. Like you start to impact people and everything connected to you organically. That's why I even tell people or my clients that are in a relationship, they always want to heal their partner. They always want to like
Yeah.
control and do. I'm like, look, this is what I want you to understand. Okay, the best thing you can do for your relationship, for your kids, for your ancestors, for your work, whatever, is your own healing, hands down.
Yes.
Like you don't have to focus on anything else. You just have to focus on yourself and let the magic happen after you've done the internal work, right? Because you start to bloom from the inside out, and it happens, like I said, organically. It's effortless at that point. When people get to the actualization stage and authenticity stage, they start to see all these things, like these signs and synchronicities and glimmers everywhere, and they start to make connections like, oh, that's why that happens, or I got this guidance, or I got this download to do this and that. And
Yeah.
that's divine, right? But you're now an open channel to do all that because you're not clouded or filtered by all of this, trauma or pain or
Yes.
suffering, right? So I'm super excited for you. Like this is what gets me as a coach, like really,
Yeah.
amped up. Like because when people make that commitment, and when people like you know make draw that line in the sand, like I'm gonna heal. Like I don't know, it just
Yeah.
brings you back to that moment where I did, and it's like I said, tough, 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 hard journey, but the reward
Yes.
and the journey itself is just beautiful. It's just very
Yes, it
unraveling.
is.
Yeah, so I'm excited for you. Wow, this is this is
You know
awesome.
what's so crazy? I've really started it probably it's been like 2 weeks now.
Okay.
So it's very consistent.
Hmm.
But I'm not even gonna lie. I have been like an entrepreneur for like 16, 17 years
Hmm.
nonstop. So right now I am literally doing absolutely nothing.
Yes.
And it feels so creepy.
Yes. Oh my! I mean, if
It
you have some time to talk about that, I would definitely give you some guidance about that because that's
yes.
that's another thing that a lot of my clients, have difficulties with, right?
Yes, it
So
feels
conditioned. Yeah.
Jay, it feels
Yeah.
weird. And
Yes.
it was so crazy because I'm like, I need to record myself right now to actually just see how far I've come. So I like recorded myself yesterday and I found myself getting emotional because I'm like, I'm really sitting here getting to know myself on another level,
Yes.
because like you're busy helping other people, but now you're busy helping yourself and you don't have absolutely nothing else to worry about. So I'm just like, oh my God, I really could just do me. And it felt
Yes.
weird. I felt lost to a point. I went to the gym yesterday and today 3 times. I was like, what else am I
Yes.
gonna do?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm
That's
like, I'm
awesome.
bored. I'm bored. I don't
Right.
know what else to do. So it's just I'm trying to adjust with it, but I'm loving it. And I just really thought about just, vlogging that journey because I lost my mom and my husband
Mhm.
and my cousin
Wow.
within a year.
Wow.
So since I've been podcasting for 3 years, I haven't stopped. I haven't like paused. So now I'm pausing and it's like a lot of reality is setting
Mhm.
in. And I'm just
Mhm.
like, oh my God. I'm like, this is crazy. But it feels
Mhm.
good though.
Yeah, yeah,
It
and
do.
yeah, condolences to your loss, and
Thank
I
you.
think, and I think you're gonna be more aware of this, or you already are, but you putting in a lot of work and busying yourself, that's also a defense mechanism for you probably
Yeah.
not wanting to feel. Now that you have all
Yeah.
this time and you've devoted yourself to just taking care of yourself, like I said, a lot of my clients, like they don't even know how to rest. Like they don't
Yeah.
understand the concept of like it's okay. for you not to do anything. And when I tell them this, I'm like, just listen to your body, because your body right now is probably telling you, Yvette, you've been
Oh yeah.
working for decades.
My
Just
body definitely has. Like
right.
I've gained weight. Like I'm at a size that I've never been. And the
Mhm.
main thing that's was more troubling to me, and a lot of people don't know, is it operates off a lot of your body is your stomach. So
Yes.
if your stomach isn't healed, you're gonna have so many issues that's just going to be like you're falling apart, and
Yeah.
that's where I'm at right now. So I'm like at a healing phase of like getting my internal self together in my physical body, my eating and everything. I'm trying to like literally change all of that.
Yeah. That's amazing. And thank you for being vulnerable, and speaking on that, because that gives you a lot of empowerment to continue this journey. And a lot of
Mm,
that is connected, with gut health, with
yeah.
all the emotions that are unresolved. It starts from the core, right? If you
Yes.
believe in the chakra system, right, you have the root chakra and the sacral and solar plexus chakra that like activates all these other
Mm,
energy,
yep.
centers in you.
And
So
mine stopped right before
yeah.
the gut. It stopped.
Yeah. But now,
And
but
it
now here
used
you are. Yeah, here
yes.
you are. You're gonna do it, and like like I said. I mean, I'm so glad you brought that up, because not a lot of people talk about that too. Just being able to, rest, because their mind is always telling them you always need to do something to be productive, or to matter, or whatever.
Yes.
Like my wife was going through that right now. Even when we moved away from her environment that caused a lot of trauma. We moved
Yeah.
thousands of miles away abroad to a whole different country, and now it's like, now she can finally breathe and rest, but then she's going through that transition of like, but how do I even do that? We have 3 kids, like, how are we gonna? And I keep telling her, it's okay, like, I'm here to
Right.
support you. If you need to take a nap, if you just don't want to do anything, well, it's
That's
cool. Like, no one's
good.
pressuring us, but like, we put that pressure on ourselves, and we sometimes don't realize that, right? Because we've been so
Yeah.
conditioned. Like, you've been working with kids and have a daycare, company for 17 years. I mean, that's all conditioning. Like, you always have to feel like you're doing something,
Yes.
But now, oh man, it's gonna be an amazing journey for
It
you.
is.
I'm so
It
excited,
is.
happy for you.
Thank you. I
Yeah, and
appreciate
if you
it.
need if you need any if you need any help, please reach out. I can
Oh,
definitely
I will. I
recommend some
will.
things. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
for
will
sure.
for sure. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming on my podcast show to enlighten and educate, inspire, and heal my listeners. I pray that they actually take heed in this and actually reach out to you for your services, because
Mhm.
you are a walking testimony, and that's what makes it even better, because you are speaking to someone that been through it already instead of
Right.
someone that skipped the process.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I'm glad to be here. It's an honor and pleasure for me. And thank you for allowing me to share my story with your audience. And hopefully, if nothing else, hopefully inspired, someone out there to begin their healing journey, right? Just has
Yes.
to spark that curiosity, like I said, to make you question. And
Yeah.
that can start the whole journey.
Yep,
So
for sure. Thank
yeah,
you.
thank
So thank
you.
you. So thank you everyone for tuning in tonight on LifeHerd Podcast. Don't forget to play back. Also subscribe and listen to LifeHerd Podcast on all major platforms. And have a good night, everyone.
Good night.